Today on Dead Dodge Garage, we turned the factory Dodge floor shifter into a GM shifter with parts and instructions from SilverSport transmissions. But first, an update on the car, because some things have happened since we broke the engine in. The Holley sniper unit is now mounted to the engine, and most of the wiring and stuff is tucked away. Mostly. Don't worry about that, that's my blood. I kind of tidied and wrapped all the wiring into this protective Lumi stuff. It's going to be back here behind the throttle body and under the air cleaner, and well, I don't think anyone will ever notice it. I also mounted the coil driver here, wrapped this wiring, and put it together with the distributor wiring, which I ran under the intake. It comes out here, you can see it's also wrapped in that protective stuff. No one will ever notice it. The unfortunate truth about wiring is if you do a good job, no one will ever know. We're still waiting on the factory engine compartment harness, so I can't terminate all this stuff just yet. Those two pink wires are the key power wires for the sniper and the ignition module thingy. But everything else is ready to go. Well, when I say everything else, this wire needs to be routed back to the fuel tank to run the pump. And these here are for AC relay. This guy is going to drive the tachometer. Part of the sniper install was this ignition setup, which is great. Unfortunately, the really nice spark plug wires that were bought for the car didn't fit because this isn't a socket style cap. It's kind of a GM style plug cap. So had to get a different set of wires, which were also very expensive, and then cut them and crimp them to fit. The spark plug end boots are supposed to be angleable, but they don't really like doing that, so they don't exactly look tidy in some places, but we're gonna call that good. Also need to finish up the fuel hoses here, mostly because I can't find any 5/16 fuel hose anywhere in this shop. But again, you know, we're close. So for the moment, I'm at a bit of a standstill on the sniper setup. Really need the factory engine harness to finish it, so I'm gonna jump over to this transmission setup again. I've got the module mounted here, and I did trim up the wiring some, but I need to determine where everything is gonna go, and I need to make the shifter work. The factory Chrysler floor shifter has 3 drive positions, 1, 2, and 3. Incidentally, all Chrysler automatic transmissions from '66 until, I don't know, the 2000s sometime, use that same exact setup, which is great. If you want to retrofit a later Chrysler overdrive automatic into one of these cars, well, the shifter's not going to be a problem. You just save the lever off your factory 727 or what have you, and hook it up. Of course, some of the floor might be in the way, but that's another story altogether. One of the great things about the SilverSport A41 setup is that, well, the 4L60E is much smaller than the Chrysler transmission, and you only slightly have to clearance the floor. But downside, figuring out the shifter. Now, if you're going to try this at home, they do include instructions, and they have pictures, so that's great. I'll even be able to understand them, but, you know, I thought I'd take you on a journey and show you how to do it anyway. Now, I've already removed the guide plate and the reverse light switch. This being a mid-60s model, that was still in the shifter. I've never had one of these apart before, but there really isn't much to it. Here you can see what we're going to be changing. The detent plate. It's pretty easy to see, it's just kind of held on with those 2 rivets, and, well, obviously we're going to grind those to bits. Here's the replacement plate from SilverSport. You can see pretty easily there are 1, 2, 3, 4 forward gear positions. Let's grind these rivet heads off on my old friend, the bench grinder. Nice. Now let's punch it. Nice. Now let's attach that one. There's the new gate installed. Note, the supplied hardware needs to go this way with the little hex caps over here, just to make sure they're not in the way of the shifter arm. Doesn't really say that in the instructions, there's just one picture. And make sure you apply some grease to the new gate. High temp red wheel bearing grease is definitely overkill for this, but it's what we got. And then the other bits get reattached. Note, this transmission comes with a fancy shifter position switch that SilverSport says you can use for the reverse lights. This thing has the factory switch on the shifter, and I think it'll still work with the new detent position, so probably going to stick with that for wiring simplicity and just use the shift position switch on the transmission for the neutral safety function. This setup does away with the factory twist linkage that lives up here. Instead, it uses a shift cable, which is going to come off of this side. So they give you this bracket, which gets bolted on with the shifter like so. Yeah, kind of like that. I want to circle back to the sniper setup because it seems maybe people might have some questions about it. You can see details on the supporting fuel system we installed in previous videos about this thing. But basically, it's 2 factory fuel lines, a 3/8 and a 5/16 for the return, bent so that instead of coming out down here, they come up the firewall and go there. And then it's just a matter of routing rubber hoses. Very easy. The fuel pump is mounted inside this baffled tank sink EFI tank. Aside from a cam change, this engine is essentially a completely stock 383, so we opted for the lowest horsepower fuel pump they make. There are a lot of different options for ignition setups with the Sniper. In this case, we've got a Performance Street Fire coil, and we're using the coil driver which is included with the Sniper to trigger it. The distributor here is the Holley HyperSpark, which connects directly to this system. It's super simple. The HyperSpark distributor is designed to work with these EFI systems, and they even provide this fancy cap, so you can sync it, get it running super easily. You do want to verify the timing after it fires. There's a special time set sequence you have to initiate with this thingy, so we'll talk about that later. The Sniper wiring is pretty simple, with 2 main connectors here, one small one for the screen, a relay and a fuse that live here somewhere, and the main power wires that go straight to the battery. I decided to make this thing even simpler by eliminating all the extra input and output wires. This is all we need, AC related stuff and a TAC output. Also, the points output down there, connected to the distributor stuff. One of my main goals here is making this EFI system blend, making it look like it belongs here. To that end, I've actually gone as far as using factory type connectors for single wire connections I need to make. Also, serviceability. In the future, someone could just unhook that when they need to drag my harness out from under the intake. The big blue wire is the main fuel pump feed, and it needs to get to the back of the car. I passed it through this now unused hole, thanks to the air conditioning conversion, and used a nice little rubber grommet there. Now it's here in a pile. I can't really finalize its location yet. The dashboard and columns still need to come out of this car, so I need to be careful what I tie things to. They really have made this simple and easy to understand. I'm pretty sure anyone can figure it out, as long as they have the right parts and documentation. I will say this quick start manual was kind of annoying because it didn't have details for those in and out wires. I had to go find the real manual on the internet. Even that manual didn't necessarily give the best details or concise instructions on how these circuits work, but I think I've got it figured out. If you don't feel like going to the effort of removing every single wire you don't need and making this as clean as possible, you can just clip them and wrap them in tape, and that'll work just fine. I'll be making up a little bracket to mount this relay and fuse right here for easy access. There will also be a relay or 2 in here for the air conditioning system. Not exactly sure on how that's all gonna work out yet, so we'll deal with that later. This is the CAN bus connector for the control system of the GM transmission. It's kind of peculiar. This is the CAN bus connector on the Sniper system. It's a very small 4-pin unit. In all of the quick start documentation, that connector is only referred to as the display connector. You know, what this hooks into. Extensive research and random clicking of internet links revealed that that is in fact the CAN bus connector for the Sniper system. What we need then is a Y connector, a cable that will allow this and that to connect, but will give us an extra dingus in the middle for this guy. And apparently, this isn't all that uncommon because I did find them online. Except I really didn't because, well, all these CAN connectors are different. There's this 4-wire, there's that 2-wire, I think there's a 3-wire, and a myriad of random plugs used. So it might actually look like a Y plug into an adapter plug into another adapter plug, but hopefully at the end these computers will talk to each other and everything will work all happy. The CAN connection would be awesome because basically the Sniper can then feed the transmission computer all of the readings it needs to make things work. If I can't get that to work, then I'll have to wire these tachometer inputs and a TPS, which seems really silly when there's already a computer running the engine. Now, I need this transmission wiring to get outside of the car to the transmission. Originally I was going to put it here, but since the shift cable's going to go there, I won't. I'm going to make a hole here. Now remember what I always say, measure once, drill 1,000 times. Nice. I used a bore bit to put a hole in an extra factory body plug. Then I gave it the snip so I can pass it around that bundle of wires and shove it all through the floor. Well, that's kind of nice. I just have to connect all that stuff, I guess. A trick I learned a long time ago, and one that they employ here to great use, is if you didn't take something apart, you don't know every little clip, every nut and bolt, every wire, etc. where all the brackets go. What you want to do is keep a parts car around, or, another car for reference, so you can see where all the bits go. And that's great. We've actually got a 67 sedan parts car out there, which I've been looking at for reference all along on this thing. I also robbed some little bits like those brackets for the washer lines off of it. Today, though, my coworker Evan brought this. This is amazing. It's a copy of the factory assembly manual, and it's got everything. It's all there. The location of every clip, every component, routing of all the wires. It's awesome. There are even component welding guides in here. Fantastic. Oh, he also got me this. It's my Christmas present. It's supplemental information for the 67 Plymouth Service Manual that includes Barracuda stuff. Neat. If you're trying to put a Mopar together, these books are amazing. They're printed by Faxon Auto Literature. Check them out. That's going to be it on the Coronet for a while. Holidays are about to happen. I'll be gone for a week, and hopefully around the time I get back, we'll get a drive shaft for this thing. Then it can go back on the lift and, well, maybe we can actually get it running again and driving. Until then, as ever, thanks for watching. And remember, keep that end pointed the correct direction.